So, today we're going to do two things or three things depending on how you see it. The first thing will be when we actually pick up a weapon. Let's pick up this shotgun. You will no longer see just when you pick it up. You're actually going to see it, place it on your character, and you will see it like it's holstered like that. And depending on what weapon you will see, you're actually going to change where it actually shows. Now, okay, this is the one thing we're going to do. The other thing we're going to do will be to actually have the unarmed state, so that he looks a bit more like Metal Gear, let's say, or other games like that. Now, the only problem with the unarmed state is that I didn't even plan it from the beginning, so that means I have no animations for the other states. Okay, and for covers and all like that, okay, it's not going to look that great. The way though we created this system is that we no longer need to, on our animator, we do not need to have a cover system that depends a lot. Not depends a lot. We do not have to have animations that are for him holding the weapon. Okay. And what I mean by that is you can have one cover system, not cover system, animation that is for crouching and all that, and then just on the upper body just override everything else. So it's pretty much the opposite of what I did over here, since all my base animations have him hold the weapon. I just have him to go over here and say, if you are unarmed, make that play the above animation, the idle animation, and if you are not unarmed and you are not moving, then revert back to an empty state. Okay, you will do the exact opposite. If you have if you have a weapon on your hands, then play an animation or an idle animation or everything else to a one that he's actually holding a weapon and stuff like that. Okay, or you can just do the opposite and have the base layer copied. If you have animations and different animations for one that he's holding weapons and one that he's not holding weapons, you can simply swap this around. So basically change a base layer from an unarmed state to a full one. Okay, that depends a lot on the animations you actually have, so I don't think there's too much point into going to further detail there, since everybody will pretty much have its own animation. Now, for the weapons and the holsters and all that, all these things are cool and all that, but what happens if I want to change the character I have inside? Then that means I have to go into my character and to each character go and take each one of these items and place them into the next character and all stuff like that. So that means it's a lot of work, it's a lot of crunch work. Okay, it's not something that useful. So because we are kind of lazy, to avoid this problem, we're going to create a system that actually makes characters. If you follow a few guidelines, then you can simply switch characters just as simple like that. Just like simple changing a number over here, and to test it out, you can see that I have a completely new character. Okay, and it has everything the previous character had. Now the only guideline you need to have is that for your characters to look correctly with all the items moved around, then you actually need to have the exact same rig between characters. So we're going to create a new game object that is going to be have a resource manager script we're going to create, and we're going to see let me show you what I mean about the rig. Okay, these are my two models. Both of them have the exact same rig down to the exact bone size. If the bone, let's say the shoulder bone of this character is a bit it's a bit larger than the bones of this character, then that means all the items are going to be offset a bit, and we do not want that. One added benefit of having the exact same rig is that I can actually go directly to the mesh and change his upper and change basically the exact mesh. So for instance, if I come over here and say to him use the mesh from and let me come over here. I have some problems with my mouse. Let's lock this. Okay, and I can come over here and drop the for some reason it doesn't work because this actually is not, it's not the clothes, it's for the hands. I wanted to drop the top. Okay, it drops the top, and of course that other character had separated the hands, has separate hands. So let me just go back like this, and let's just see the pants, because I know this character's pants are the same mesh. Okay, so let's say over here I want to use the pants from the other mesh. I just drag and drop them, and I only need to assign the materials. And of course I need to find also the materials. Are they this? And it's not this. Let's actually see them. Could be this, or could be this. Is this? Okay. And if I hit play right now, of course this they do not have an animator or a script over here, but this way I can actually switch models and stuff like that, because I have the exact same rig on all my characters. I can swap the meshes around. Okay, now this leads to a few problems though. So we're actually going to create another system that takes all the items we have over here, stores them, deletes the previous character, creates the new character, and then loads all the items to that character. And there are some Unity bugs that also we need to think about. Doesn't matter if there is a bug, we only care if we actually can circumvent the bug and work with it instead of just hitting a brick wall. Okay, so there are two ways. The one is the one we're going to see. The other is making a system that switches character meshes around, but it's not, I don't like it that much, because it's sometimes it's unpredictable, especially when you have when your weight is not the best you can have on your models. And there's also a few cases that that the models will also have some extra meshes over here. So for instance, I have one model that has the hands separated from the body, and I have another model that has them like this. Okay, so there you have a problem because your character, if you're only switching meshes around, then that means your character will not have, in a case like that, your character will just be left without hands. Okay, so this way we're going to do it. It's more predictable, and it's more, I think it has more safe results. So let me delete these two models and let's get back to our character. Now we're going to create a few scripts. And I think I have them on utilities. No, I have them on items, or not on items, on managers. So we're going to create a shareable objects component and a resource manager that takes care of everything over here. So shareable objects means that every item we want to have moved from character to character needs to have this component of shareable object. Now, I do not mean about items like the weapon holder, audio stuff, or everything else we have outside of our main rig. We only care about the items we have inside soldier, the same rig, the character that is the actual character basically. Okay, everything that goes under this animator. So that means everything we have on the right hand, all our weapons. Okay, all our weapons and everything else we have for the holsters. So any polishing item or any just few details, they can go with the shareable object. The other thing that we need to take care inside our shareable object, you will see that I only have one variable. It needs to take from one behavior because we assign it on game object, and it has a public human body bones, which is an enum that comes with Unity. It's basically for humanoid characters, and we call it parent bone. So that means we take what bone to assign it by using the humanoid of mechanism. Now, of course, if you do not have humanoid characters, you wouldn't be able to follow this series, so it doesn't matter. This is pretty much hard-coded for humanoids, but as I said, if you do not have humanoid characters, you wouldn't be able to use the built-in AK Unity has, so that means you wouldn't be following 11 parts into this series. So I need to go into its item and assign it the parent bone I want to have. For this pistol, for example, it needs to be on the right upper leg, and for the hands on the items on the right hand, they will have the parent bone to be right hand. The only problem you can face with this is that sometimes the rigs do not actually represent the human body bones, but those are a few cases that. So for instance, my character has 3 bones for spine, but the humanoid has only spine, chest, and then goes to neck and head and all that. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you're placing weapons around. Continuing on, since we have all our weapons and we basically set up what we need to take from model to model, we can come and write a resource manager. Our resource manager is going to take from 2 new classes. This is a class that we're going to add it into a list, which has the character models. It will have an ID and the game object, the prefab, the actual model we're going to create. Soldier 1 and the rest. Okay. the models we saw before. This only has an animator and does not have anything, any other item in it. Okay, no weapons, nothing on the right hand, nothing else. Everything that has to do with the model. We're also going to need a dummy game object. Now, it doesn't matter what rig it has, and it's best to not even be to do anything with the other models, because there is I'm just using this model because there is a bug with the Unity animator. When you're switching avatars, if they have the exact same size, then you get problems and the animator cannot rebind on your model, so it will just make it so that it's not initialized, and that's actually a bug that have me bothered with a lot of hours trying to circumvent that. But I found out that if the model, if you're changing avatars between different rigs, then you have zero problems. So to fix that, to circumvent that bug, I first, before changing to the model I want to use, I change first to the model, to a model that I know that none of my other models will have the same rig. Okay, so that's why I call it dummy. And then change from the dummy model to the actual model I'm using. Okay, and for this model, the weapons do not even have to look the same, do not have to look correct where they placed. We're only going to be storing the local position and local rotation and scale and all that. We're just going to be storing those and just moving them around. Okay, the dummy is kind of important because otherwise we'll have a lot of errors. So moving on, character models, and these are the shareable assets info. We need to store the actual game object, its position, local position, its local rotation, its local scale, if it was active when we took it, and its current bone. And we will see where we use this. So we have our public list with all the character models we have. The first character model on the list should always be the dummy, and by first I mean at 0 indexed. Okay, when we want to switch the characters, we will call this function switch character model with index. Okay, we will call either with this, or we will call directly by using the ID. We need to pass the actual state manager, and we also need to pass, of course, an integer for the target. Then we'll start our coroutine, and this coroutine will call the switch character with, which is actually what comes and switches the character from a character model list, and the target, the first time we're switching, will switch, of course, to the dummy, and when the coroutine ends, we'll switch to the actual target character we want. So switch character with, we still pass the state manager and the target, and we check if the model we have on the state manager, which I'm going to see the definition right now. Let's see the additions we have on our state manager. We need a reference to our actual model, and on start we can also assign it to get the first child, since we know that the first child we have will always be our model. Okay, let's remove this. We're also going to use a reference to the weapon manager, so we assign that on start 2, and we also assign it over here. And for now on, I think we have everything we're going to use into the state manager, and we're also going to add a public boolean for melee weapon, which we'll see in a bit what this is. So Let's save. Let's get back to our resources manager. Okay, that was the previous model. If the previous model is not active, we activate it. We need to create a list of shareable objects where we store all the objects we want to save. We have a new function into our weapon manager, and there's a reason why we keep that into our weapon manager, which populates and returns a list with all the shareable objects we have under our character. So let's go into our weapon manager, and into our weapon manager we also added reference to the state manager and to a new weapon reference base, which later on is going to serve as the unarmed weapon. Okay, because the unarmed weapon is basically a special weapon which does not have any which stands for, doesn't have any models, doesn't have any arcade targets, it has its own behavior, so we want it to be outside of our own weapon list, okay, and our available weapons, of course. And on start, of course, we assign the reference to the state manager and so on. Moving on, as I said, let's close this, we will see later. Let's see the shareable list. Okay, this returns, as I said, a list with all the shareable objects we have under our character. We have our return value, which will be a list, and then we start. We need to get all the components that have a shareable object component and store them in the array. So for each shareable object we have inside this array, we start adding it to our return value. Now, with this there is a slight problem. Now, of course, you can just eliminate all this and make this public list and assign everything from the inspector instead of writing the script and getting the list from there, but after all, it's a programming tutorial channel, of course, so let's do it this way. So the problem with this is that this will only get shareable objects that are enabled and active in the hierarchy. So of course that leads to the problem that if we have weapon holstered then or disabled and all that, then it's not going to find it and return it, so it's not going to move it. But since we already know where our references are, we can use another for each loop. So we say for every weapon we have in our weapons, if that weapon has a holster weapon, store if we have it active or not by checking if it's active in hierarchy, and we turn it active no matter what its state was. We turn it active and we search to find if it has a get component, a shareable object. If it has a component of shareable object. If it does, then store that shareable object. If we haven't already contained it into our return value list, add it. If it wasn't active, that game object, then deactivate it. Same for our weapon models, if it was active or not, okay, enable it. If it has a shareable object component, then store it and check to see if we already have it in our list. If we don't, then add it. And if it was active, if it wasn't active, then disable it and return that list into our resource manager. So we can come back into our resource manager. We have all our objects, so we need to create a new list that we store for all our shareable objects, that we start storing the stuff we need to save. So for every shareable object we have, for each shareable object we have into our all objects, we create a new entry for the shareable assets info, and we say we store the game object, we store its local position, local rotation, local scale, the parent bone, if it was active in the hierarchy or not, and we disable it. We put it out of a parent because we are destroying the previous game model, and we add it into our list. We instantiate the new model we take the model from the target, from a character models list, and this doesn't matter, and we instantiate as game object. The parent will be the parent that we passed the state manager, okay, the transform which has the state manager we passed, and we basically need to reset its local position to be on vector 3.0 and its local rotation to be on quaternion.euler 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now, if the target was the dummy, then we want to disable the game object. Otherwise, there might be a frame that you actually see the dummy game object into the game. This might not be a problem if you use this to create enemies and move them around, or this might be a problem if you don't want to use enemies and move them around. Okay, this part is entirely up to you. So, moving on, we assign the previous game model from whatever the state has, okay, and we say the state model will be the new model, the current state model will be the new model, and we have onto our handle animation script, we made the setup animator public, and we pass a new animator. And let's see why we do that. If you remember, our setup animator, we previously just look for an animator into our children, and if it wasn't our own animator, we assigned the avatar to our own animator and destroy that animator. Now we're going to add this function that takes also an animator, but it's also initialized as null, so we can call this function without passing an animator. And if we do that, if the animator is null, that this function takes, then it's going to do what it was doing before. Else, instead of looking to the children, it's going to take the avatar from the target animator and then destroy the target animator. Okay. And of course it needs to be public. So, with that in mind, we basically deleted the previous game model, we created a new game model, we store its animator, so we passed the animator to the setup animator, so it moves the avatar around, so you can control the new animator. We destroy the previous model, and you can call now for the animator to rebind the animator, which usually this might not be needed, and it might be needed. Okay, this depends a lot on how you use it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but let's just call rebind every time, because from what I can get, this is the logic. Basically, rebind sets the transforms underneath the correct bones to use for the animator. Okay, so we store all the items we need to take. We destroyed the previous game model, we created a new game model, we set up our own animator. That means the only thing left to do now is to actually pass the items from the old animator, or where we store them, to the new model. So we have all our items into our list, and we go into each one. We save the transform so that we're not using this all the time. Okay, the parent will be the bone transform that we saved into the parent bone. The local position will be the saved local position, local rotation the saved local rotation, the local scale the saved local scale. And now this doesn't always work, because local scale is a bit tricky to work, but if you keep the same rig, this will work pretty much, should probably work always correct. And if the previous model was active, if on the previous model it was active, then it's going to set it active again. Okay. Then we simply stop here, return null our coroutine. And that is how you switch characters and taking all your items with you. Return character model index from ID. You will use the string ID, and it will return you the index even though I do not use it anywhere. Okay. Instead, if you want to change characters with an index, you will use this. If you want to use this to change characters with the ID, you pass the ID. You'll pass the ID over here to use the index, and you will call this function. Okay, and that's basically how you want to call characters to change instead of the index, because it's impossible to know all the characters you're instantiating with the index. Okay, and of course the resource manager should be a singleton, since there's only one resource manager into our list, into our game, and the rest we saw all that. So that is how you actually change characters easily and with not too much trouble. And the other good thing about this is that even though I hit play and I'm actually in game, let me close that, let me unlock my cursor too. Okay, I'm actually in game right now. I can go into my third person controller, I can change my target character, and if I click switch character, it switches it without having to wait or anything else. Okay, and everything works as it should. Now on state manager, what I have to actually change the character is basically and simply, I don't have it open, let's just open it. I think I need to change my mouse. On fixed update, if switch character, close the switch character to false, then call the singleton for the resource manager, if it's not null, of course, then switch character with the index with the target character index. Okay, and that is how you do that, how you change characters. Now, I'm going to end the video over here, and I'm going to take a break and then come back to do the melee part and the rest of how you place the holster weapons and all that. So, I'll see you in the next part.